Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you for another Film Fanatic show. It is about 10:14 on a Thursday. Hope everyone's doing good. So, yeah, it's another pretty nice, decent fall day, or a little bit of a nicer day. It's been pretty overcast, pretty gray all week, and kind of rainy. Surprise, surprise. But it's supposed to be pretty crappy this weekend, I think. So, but today it's and tomorrow I think, or today at least, it might be a little bit on the sunnier side. So today is going to be a different show. This is more of a response to a video I just saw, and just basically a little bit of a rant. And I generally I always believe in totally respecting people's opinions. I totally believe in people can have very different opinions and be able to, if they can be in the same room or have that open discussion, you can have completely different, opinions. And I think you can do it, you can have an opinion and share that opinion, hopefully, in a way that you can kind of get your point across and be respectful of that person. And then also, understand that the world around you does not share your own opinion, because that's very important. I think too often now, with where we are at with our culture, is people do it in this emotional way where they just emotionally respond, and they do it in a way of where, well, if they don't share my opinion, that person is just wrong, and therefore they're they have a lower IQ, and you don't need to express your opinion that way. You can do it in a real kind of cordial way for the most part, but you can have very different opinions. So today's show is about a YouTube woman who I watch. Her name is Snarky J. She has a YouTube channel, and I do watch it quite a bit. She's very cool. She's very entertaining. She's really into the whole cosplay thing. She dresses up in various cosplay costumes, which is kind of a fun thing visually. And her channel, most of the movies that she covers are the bigger budget, big blockbuster films that are out there. More so, she's really steeped in essentially comic book movies. All the movies that come out from Marvel, all of the DC comic book movies. I'm a huge, I watch her show because I'm also, very much, I consider myself, very much a fan of those genres. And I'm more of a Marvel person, but it's kind of all in the same universe. I mean, and the one of the things that I will have to say is, I've talked about it before. I have a real sense of just totally fatigued around superhero movies, and I can't really watch. I still love them, and I own tons of the Marvel movies and the DC Marvel movies. But as far as new ones go, and I will, if there's a whole bunch of them I will probably eventually see, but I just haven't been able to feel motivated to see any of these movies in the theater because it's been, I've seen some that have been very very disappointing, and also I just feel like there's so many of them that it's overwhelming, and I've gotten this overwhelming sense of fatigue to where I can't do it anymore. So I have not gone to see any of the Marvel movies or DC movies that have come out, and there's been so many, just this year alone. So there's a whole plethora of movies that I haven't seen in those universes because of that. And I have, it's weird. I have no desire to really see them. As much of a fan as I am, it just hasn't. One of the cool things that I like that she does, that Snarky J does on her show, is she's very critical of the situation right now, where the whole comic book world is right now, and all of the being so inundated with all of these films, even though she's very passionate, like I am, about film, but then, really still loves the genre and is doing it because, coming from a place that, she cares about it. So she wants to see it kind of get back on track as well. And I share that opinion. So she has a very critical view and stance on a lot of those movies and the movies that are still coming out, which I think is really needed. And but recently she just did a video where she just saw a film. She got to go see an early screening of the Killers of the Flower Moon, which is the new Martin Scorsese movie starring Robert De Niro and Leonardo DiCaprio and Lily Gladstone. And that's a movie I have been wanting to see for I first heard about it 2 years ago. I have not read the book, but I've heard the book is incredible. It's something I eventually want to read. And I've just heard about this movie for a long time. And Martin Scorsese is one of my favorite directors of all time. And I love all of his work. And so it's opening this weekend. So I'm very, very excited. It's the first movie he's done since The Irishman, which I think is an incredible movie. It was his last movie. It came out about 2 or 3 years ago. It was exclusively a Netflix production. It did not see the theater. It might have had a very small limited release, but it didn't make the theaters. And I had to wait a long time, a whole year, before I could see it because of the streaming thing. Before it came, there was a huge amount of time before it actually came to where there was a physical copy of it, and I rented it. And it's an amazing movie. It's a masterpiece. It's very long, but still just incredible. And so I'm really excited about seeing it. But she saw it early, and she was talking about her experience going to the theater. And the theater she had a really awful experience. She had people where the people were, kind of being assholes in the theater. The seats were uncomfortable. It was an old theater that hasn't been restored. And it's a long movie. It's close to 4 hours. So, of course, that would make for a horrible experience. And she ended up walking out of the theater and only saw 2 hours of it. So, which is terrible because when you're in a situation and you've gone to the movies and you've seen a movie that and you pay the ticket price, which isn't cheap, but you pay the ticket price, you pay for the experience, and it's that bad, and you have to walk out. I just think is terrible. You're flushing your money and your time down the toilet. Time is money. So. And, there are all these various reasons. People talking, being on their phones, people chewing too loud, and all these things. And the seats being uncomfortable because they were not, they're old seats. It was an old crickety kind of theater, it sounded like. And basically she went on this whole big talk in a new video where she said, it was awful. When it came to her talking about the movie, she said the movie was incredible from what she saw of it. But the experience was so bad that it caused her to leave the theater. And but then she also went on this big thing of where she was talking about more or less this is the reason why I don't go to the movies, and that more or less why she feels the movie theater experience is a dead experience. It doesn't really exist anymore, and that it should just go away. And that and she even talked about how on top of that she's pretty antisocial. She doesn't like social gatherings. She basically just stays at home. At least it sounded like in the video. She stays at home and makes these videos and lives her life at her house. And, I get that. But my whole response, so then I saw the video, and that's what kind of irked me. That's what kind of fired me up a little bit, for what it's worth. And it's not worth very much, but that's what spurred on my feeling that I wanted to respond to her video, and where I wanted to talk about the actual film going experience. And I said, and I thought, in my response, or in my comment, not a response, but in my comment, I just basically said, and I think it's an age thing, but I'm obviously very much older than her, probably old enough to be her dad. She's 23. So obviously, I have more experience than her in a lot of ways, but that is not at all a knock on her age. But, it's like the Judas Priest song. You don't have to be old to be wise, or the lyric. And so, and I totally believe that. I work with kids, so I totally understand that. But I was saying, well, in my years and all of my times that I've gone to the movies, I've had, we've all had that experience. You go to a theater and it's, you have, maybe it's sold out or it's like so crowded that, it's a little bit overwhelming, and or that people are talking throughout the movie. They're on their phones, or they're like making all this noise, and uh, people are asking their friend or friends about, oh, do I know who this actor is, or were they in this movie? And they go on this whole big dialogue about that. And, it can be just really a terrible experience. And, the actual seats, where you're actually sitting is not comfortable. I've had so many experiences like that. Luckily, I can't remember the last time I went to the theater and that happened really. It's been quite a few years, and I've been going. I don't go to the theaters, like I don't go to the movie theater like I used to, but I still go. And I haven't had an experience like that in a really long time. And I've been to the last couple of years or so. I've been to a few movies where they were packed, and I haven't had that unfortunate experience of where people were just really obnoxious. But basically, she was saying that this is a reason as to why, uh, she was really knocking and to a degree trashing, the idea of going to the movies, and that people, she doesn't go out anymore and she doesn't support it and all these kinds of things. So I basically said to her, well, and she's all about streaming. She's all about accessing her movies and all of her music through streaming platforms. And I said to her in my comment, I was basically saying, in my experience of like, because I don't do any streaming. I go to the movies. One of my favorite things to do, probably my favorite activity to do, besides seeing live music or concerts, is to go to the movies. But I don't stream movies. I don't stream music. I collect physical media, books, albums, CDs, DVDs, VHS, Blu-rays, 4K. I when I consume media, I like the tactile thing. I own things, the physical thing, and I have most my favorite way to watch films at home, or is through a Blu-ray format or 4K. And I have a very nice sound system here at home with a nice subwoofer and whatnot. And I have seen, even though I don't use those forms of seeing media, I have seen tons of movies through, or lots of films through streaming platforms, whether it's been at someone's house or in passing or whatnot. And also the same thing for music. I've checked out those formats a lot, and and over time I just came to the conclusion that there there's a when I compare seeing films through through Netflix or through Hulu, when I compare that experience to going to see a movie in the theater, or or watching it at home on a really nice Blu-ray physical copy DVD or 4K DVD, for me there's no comparison in the quality as when comparing the streaming to actual physical media, or being in a place in the theater, especially in the theater. To me, there's no comparison because of the quality. I feel like the quality is just completely superior in those ways of watching a film and also listening to music. Um, and I was talking about how mainly and I a good I think it's a pretty safe generalization, but I feel like most people out there don't really care about the quality of something anymore. I feel like people don't really care about quality because people listen to things on the earbuds. People listen to things on their computers. I know people who watch movies on their computers, and who or watch things on their iPhone or watch things even on their watches. They uh, they don't really. It's more, and I said it's more about the convenience. It's more about the easy access of being able to have all these devices at your fingertips and being able to watch whatever the fuck you want to watch at any given moment. It's more about that to me, in my opinion. It's not really about the fully immersive experience, and it's not really about the uh, high quality sound or high quality video. I mean, for example, just look at what's on YouTube. There's amazingly great quality videos on there, but the majority of videos that are on there are terrible visually and audio. I know for myself, if there's a band I want to see live or some other thing, I will spend uh, a lot of time trying to find good quality, and I have to sift through, for the most part, really bad quality, really bad audio, really bad video. That being said, when I do find something that's really good quality, it's amazing and it's worth that time. But I think most people don't really care about that. It's just about having things quick and the convenience and having it right there, and just, that's really all it's about. And I say, well, in comparison, when you watch a film, say through Netflix, and as opposed to watching it in a theater or at home on Blu-ray 4K, to me, when I've seen, in my experience, watching movies in that format, there's a total difference in the quality of the picture and the audio, like night and day difference. And when it comes to like the visual element, I feel like every time I've watched a movie, um, big example for me was I watched a couple of years ago. I watched Ari Aster's Hereditary at a friend's house, and I had seen that movie a couple times before. I love that movie to death, and I've seen it a couple times on DVD and Blu-ray, and I was always blown away by that movie. And I remember watching it over at a friend's house, actually another time fairly recently, and we watched it through the Netflix account streaming service, and I noticed that the pixelation was off. It was weird, and the when there are scenes of where it's pretty dark, it's so dark that you can't really even see what's going on. Like the resolution is off, and the pixelation is weird. It's kind of like it gets almost it almost feels like it's exploding or something on the screen. Like it gets like distorted. That's one thing I've seen. The biggest thing for me, where I've noticed when it comes to the visual thing, watching movies on streaming platforms, is that when it comes to a scene of where it's dark, naturally dark for the film, it's so dark that you cannot see what's going on at all. Um, and the other thing I noticed too, when it comes to the sound for the dialogue, or especially the soundtrack or the film score of the movie, everything everything seems louder, and there's no dynamic area for you to enjoy it. There's no you lose the highs, you lose the lows, and especially the dynamic range. There, it's hard to decipher quiet and loud. Everything is just kind of coming at you at this even level, and it's disorienting. For me, it is. And I don't know the exacts or the specifics on what this technology is that they use, but I have read a little bit about it, and I've heard about it, and listened to and talked to people about it, and that there is these companies, all of these streaming companies, use some kind of compression, so you're able to watch these movies because of the the bit torrents, or the um, however, what is required for people to, if you're watching a movie through your computer or watching it through your television, your Apple television or your or what have you, there is a there is some kind of heavy duty compression put on used in this technology so people can have access to it. So I feel like those are examples of where the quality is off. And if you care about quality, and you're a fan of film and movies, if you care about quality and you want to have, because to me it's about movies and film, really all art in general, but especially when it comes to film, movies, and listening to an album, to me it's about, at the end of the day, it's about total immersion. It's about immersing your senses in this kind of alternate reality. So to me, it's a no-brainer, or there's no argument really around. Well, if you have this choice of where you're going to see something where through a format of where it's pretty subpar, and there's a clear degradation of sound and the quality, as opposed to seeing something that has where you're getting that actual experience. To me, it's a no-brainer what you would choose, or what you should choose, in regards to how you're going to be, accessing that those films, or that those albums. So I was talking about that, and I talked about how there are a handful of directors and actors in Hollywood, who are very much outspoken against, how people see movies now. At the same time, like with technology, there's no stopping it. It's going to keep going and going and going. So whether you really love it, or you really hate it, or you're against it, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because people want this thing. The majority of people, in the world want this thing. They want the convenience, so it's not going to go away. For artists and people who are creating this content, they have you. It really comes down to, you either adapt to it or you die. Simple. I don't think there's any way of, like, you're not gonna kind of tie it up and put it in a box and put it in the closet if you have a strong opinion against it, where you despise it. That's impossible. That's not. It's you have to go. You have to accept it, and you have to. You don't necessarily have to embrace it, but you have to accept it if you're steadfast against it. Like I kind of am. You have to you have to accept where it is, and you have to be able to adapt to it. That's it. And on the other hand, and in another ways, you just fully adapt it, and you just you know use it as your new way of operating. But a lot of these people, and I used examples of great directors like Quentin Tarantino, Denis Villeneuve, Christopher Nolan. All three of those guys especially, and there are other directors, but those three especially, and also Tom Cruise being also part of this group, where they have been very, very outspoken about this very thing, and about how people see films, and how people have that experience, and how strongly they feel that it's just, at the end of the day, it's just not as good. There is a degradation in quality in comparison to streaming versus seeing something on Blu-ray 4K or IMAX, or that theater experience. There's and they're, to a degree, they've made films, and they continue to talk about it, where they create films with that purpose of getting asses in the seats, because they feel like we're creating, in their opinion, they're creating art, and this is the way it should be experienced. So I just, this is something I think about a lot, and it's something I have to think about a lot, as not only as a fan of film, film fanatic, but also, me being the little old musician that I am, an artist that I am, it's something I have to think about all the time. It's on my head. It's in my head a lot, because of how, using social media, how, how you can use it to promote. But how the biggest thing is, well, that is one big thing. But then when it comes to the actual streaming things, how do you get your you know stuff heard? What is the best format? And also, when you're mixing music and mastering music, I know now, like, I have to take in so many different ways of thinking about how people are going to access it. Whether they're listening to it on their phones, they're listening through earbuds, or listening to it on their computer, what have you. So there's a whole new set of variables to take into account when it comes to releasing movies or music. And in some ways, again, that being all said, I think with technology now and information, I think in some ways things are much better than they've ever been, but it's part of the matrix. All of these other things that I first talked about I feel personally, are the negative. So it's a balance. It's a balance factor. So this show is just about talking about Snarky J's post, but then my comment, and just my general opinion about something that I care deeply about. So thanks again, and we will see you next time. Peace.